Rwanda Bill is not just a solution, but is a lifesaver and might stop people getting on these small boats? Or do you think it is a distraction from the fact that they're absolutely desperate and they'll do it whatever happens?
Well, I think that it's very much the latter. People who are not dissuaded from continuing to attempt the journey after they have seen uh, three men, a woman, and a small child drown in front of their very eyes will not be dissuaded by the prospect of Rishi Sunak maybe getting a handful of people onto a flight to Rwanda. The deterrent argument simply just doesn't hold water. It's not credible. But what we are seeing, and what we're likely to see more of, is actually people taking more dangerous routes. And that's why the sort of rate of deaths in the channel appears to be going up. People are trying to evade detection by enforcement officers who are operating both from the French and the British side. And as it becomes impossible to gain protection in the UK, if you come here and you present yourself and you say, I'm a refugee, I need protection, as we say now, we're not going to give that to you, and we might even send you off by force to Rwanda. The likelihood is that we'll see people take more dangerous routes in order to try to not be found by the border force agents of the UK, and to escape detection so as not to be put into that system that might end up in their deportation to Rwanda. So that means more deaths in the channel. And also it means that if people remain outside of the asylum system, because we've effectively scrapped the asylum system, it means that people are then going to be at greater risk of exploitation by traffickers and smugglers as well. So we're looking at something that's going to increase risk, definitely not a deterrent, and definitely not something that's really about saving lives.
Right, I'm gonna throw that over to my guest, but before I do, I want to ask you a specific question, Zoe, and this is what it is. So many people say when they're discussing this issue, these people are coming from France. They're not coming from a war-torn zone. They're not risking violent reprisals or being abused because they're gay. They're not risking torture. They are in France. So I would like you to explain, if you can, why these people in France, who are not in immediate danger of losing their lives or anything of the kind, are so, and the word people keep using, and you can see with excellent reason, is so desperate that they will engage with people smugglers, that they will get on these inflatables and dinghies, and they risk losing their lives, as 5 people, including a 7-year-old child, did only today. So why are they so desperate? What is it they think they're coming to? And what is it that they're coming away from? Just so people can get an idea of what it is that's motivating and fueling all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a perfectly legitimate question, because to you or I, it does seem like an enormous risk to be taking just to escape from France, which to you or I seems like a perfectly safe country. And in many cases, it is. In fact, France takes in far more refugees than we do. So more people stop in France than attempt to continue that journey to the UK. I think it's difficult to do, but we've got to try to put ourselves in the shoes of the people who are taking those desperate journeys and that additional step. And so we have to think that, first of all, they're people who have lost absolutely everything. They have nothing but the clothes on their backs when they're there in northern France. The likelihood is that they've already taken an extremely long and extremely perilous journey. They may well have crossed the Sahara Desert, where it's estimated that twice as many migrants die making the attempt to cross the desert, the sort of sea of sand, than die crossing the Mediterranean and the Sea of Water. So we're talking about people who have probably experienced the death of their traveling companions, probably many of their family members. They've lost their homes, they've lost everything. To somebody in those circumstances, the evidence shows us that really when they're trying to reach the UK, it's for perfectly rational reasons. It's because the UK is somewhere where members of their community from where they've come from may be well established, people who speak their language, who they feel will be able to support them, or they might have relatives or friends who are based here in the UK. They might already speak the language, or they might feel that they have failed to find adequate protection in other European countries along the way. So that could be because they've been detained or abused by the authorities in other countries, because they've been lied to or are under the control of the smugglers and the gangs that have are in control of their journeys far more than they are. So there are a lot of reasons why somebody who's already in such a desperate circumstances, has already risked so much and is now, from their perspective, extremely close to the aim that they eventually, the hope that they are clinging to of a safe future in the UK, might take those risks, where you or I would obviously say, this is an incredibly dangerous thing to do, and ultimately they won't be dissuaded. So what we should be doing is offering them safe alternative means of travel, so as to stop them from getting into those smugglers' boats, to let them come to the UK safely, just like you or I would do, taking the ferry, taking the Eurostar, and then they could enter an asylum system that could fairly determine their claim for protection in the UK and understand why they've come here. And then we'd know who they were, we'd know how they were coming, they'd come safely. But under the current circumstances, we just leave them to these awful criminal gangs, and we have these awful results.
So that this could be rolled out in other countries as well. So you get some people into Rwanda, but then there are other possible destinations that other illegal arrivals can be sent off to pretty sharpish. Would that then be a deterrent? Could that then filter through and be something that people know and think, well, it really isn't worth paying the smugglers, it's not worth risking our lives, because really we could end up not just in Rwanda, but in these variety of different destinations?
Well, I think it's too much of a hypothetical to be really able to make a statement on at this point, because this actually isn't a very new idea in concept. It only became sort of a public outcry because they managed to finally sign a deal with the country. But both the UK and all other European countries have been trying to sign exactly this kind of deal with countries all around the world for several decades now. And most countries will accept to receive their own nationals, but won't accept to be ultimately the dumping ground for whoever another country wants to send to them. It's a very unusual thing that the Rwandan government has agreed to here. They've obviously got a huge amount of benefit from it in terms of, we're paying them through the nose. And obviously now the British government, that was previously very critical of the Rwandan regime's human rights abuses and so on, is now going to say, of course, the regime in Rwanda is absolutely fine. The dictatorship in Rwanda is a brilliant place to live. So they've benefited from it in some ways, but they've also suffered a great deal of bad press and had their sort of failings as a judicial system, as a system that fails to hold free and fair elections, that fails to have a free press. All of that dirty laundry splashed across the international press as well, with the backlash against this. So I think that other countries looking at that, it's not a particularly tempting offer. And I do think that it's important what you said also about other European countries looking at this kind of deal as well. And as I say, they've been trying to achieve them for many years already. And if they see this as being something that, is successful in the sense of flights taking off, as I say, I don't think it will be successful in any other way, but some flights may take off, then they may continue to pursue that. But then that's an issue for us too, isn't it? It's like very interesting that Rishi Sunak and James Cleverly are spending so much time cozying up to the Italians, when what we're really saying is that all refugees should stay in France, or should stay in Italy, or should stay in other European countries and not come to us. Now, if the other European countries join into this race to the bottom, as we're caught in at the moment, and start sending people away as well, then the deterrent effect of coming to the UK, supposed, absolutely goes up in smoke anyway, doesn't it? So this is also part of the question that we should be thinking about for the longer term. What does this start to look like in Europe as a whole? And how do refugees ultimately end up finding protection?